Well, what would you have called a Jeffrey Combs podcast then?
What would I have called it?
Yeah.
Coman. Well,
I know.
I feel like
I put you on the spot.
I should have been prompted beforehand.
No. I wanted to catch your live reactions on tape.
Something with Combs,
Surely.
or Jeff cast.
Jeff of both Combs. What? No. How about... Wait, what? No, this is your challenge. You go.
Yeah, Comb in the desert,
The desert is...
and then the opening is the combing the desert gag from Spaceballs, and you open with that, and then you launch into the usual opening, which is hello and welcome to Reanimates,
I do the intro.
the internet's only or best Jeffrey Combs podcast. Look at that. All the films in his varied filmography, and what a filmography he's had.
This is the second time I've had you on, Tim, and both times you've tried to usurp my hosting duties.
They call me the coup d'etat of podcasts. I come in
You take over.
secretly funded by the CIA and try and take over podcasts.
Yes, Tim Clark. Welcome
Hello.
back.
Thank you very much for having me. Return guest.
Return guest from episode 2.
Episode 2.
Yes.
Now, if you go back and listen, I thought it was going to be episode 1.
Exactly. I deliberately made it episode 2 to fuck you over.
Exactly. A lot of running gags, which is why I'm going to be talking all this time about how this is going to be episode 100. That means I'm going to get pushed back to 101.
Yep. Just got to keep pushing you back.
Thank you very much for having me. Lovely to be here. We're dealing with this week's movie, I should say, title of which is...
Castle Freak.
Took a while to jump into the pool, but glad you're here. Yeah, Castle Freak. I've wanted to watch this movie for years.
Yeah.
It's a Combs starring vehicle,
Yep. He's very...
like his car. Now, Lisa... Now, listeners at home, Lisa burst into laughter and then immediately said, I'm going to put a pause in there to make it seem like the joke was bad, which it
Yeah.
isn't. I'm Lisa Dibb.
Yeah, I'm going to do some sneaky editing to make it seem like you're not funny.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Doing a
are.
lot of editing in this episode.
We are doing Castle Freak. It's a great movie in a lot of ways
Now,
because
I'm going to pull you up on that one there, Lisa.
in some ways because Jeff is in the lead, and it is a Stuart Gordon directed project, obviously with his writing partner Dennis Paoli, and we've got Jeff coming back with Barbara Crampton,
Oh,
Dream Team.
love Barb.
Love Barb, she's great.
This is a crossover episode with my podcast, Babblin' 'Bout Babs. Love Barbara Crampton. How many films have they done together? Because it's this,
Okay, they got
Reanimator,
Reanimator, From Beyond,
From Beyond,
Castle Freak.
Castle Freak.
If you want to count The Evil Clergyman, that's 4.
I always count the evil clergyman. It's bloody all of them.
Oh!
My calculator won't even bloody count that high. I was looking into it. She's had some cameos in things like other Stuart Gordon vehicles, but I can't remember if they've crossed over.
I think they've done 5 films together. They obviously work well together, and here this is very different to what we've seen them do before, because this is pretty much... It's sort of a character piece in this where a lot of the drama is the familial drama of this family, which we'll get into. So it's not as fun, schlocky gore as like something like Reanimator is. It's much more serious.
Mm-hmm.
There's some parts that are genuinely quite upsetting. And genuinely overall, I think Stuart Gordon wanted to make a much more serious film.
That was my major takeaway from this. Like I said, I wanted to watch this movie for years. I'm a fan of the podcast The Flophouse, and they've got a running gag on there. And I've heard so much about this movie. And, I love Jeffrey Combs. I love Barbara Crampton. I love Stuart Gordon. Surely this is in my wheelhouse. I love schlocky, B-movie, horror, fun.
Yep.
Which is what I was going into this expecting it to be.
Yeah.
And I think the expectation going into it left me ultimately very disappointed with the movie.
Yeah, I think...
Thanks for joining us this week on Babblin' 'Bout Babs. Next week, Funny Girl. I'm talking about all kinds of Barbaras.
I would have called it...
Well. Little Miss, I'm going to put you on the spot, is on the spot herself. Enjoy the zoo, Spot.
Mental... I was trying to come up with, like, cramps, menstrual cramps, mental Crampton.
Mental cramps?
Nope. Doesn't matter.
Nope.
I'm going to edit it out so I still sound all right.
No!
Another link that I realised to the episode that you were on previously is that the castle in which this was filmed, which was owned by Charles Band from Full Moon, is the same castle where they filmed Pit and the Pendulum, which was the last episode you did.
Yes, I did Pit and Pendulum, which was Pit and Pendulum, a very surprising movie because I went in with very low expectations and it turned out to be pretty good. Complete opposite with this one. But I saw that on the IMDb trivia, which I was looking at before. But it's also something that I just noticed in the movie as well. It was like, I'm watching Jeffrey Combs all bloody flustered, and we'll get into why. Flustered is a very inappropriate word to use. But he's running through this dusty castle. One, castles seem like a terrible house to live in. And two, I totally noticed it, and even the framing of the shots that they're using in some, absolutely basically the same as the Pit and the Pendulum. It's a great back-to-back with Pit and the Pendulum and Castle Freak if you want to watch the same castle.
Yeah, the same castle, a couple of the same cast members.
It's like when you see Tom's Restaurant from Seinfeld in the background of any other New York movie. Is that where Harry's going to meet Sally?
Well, basically the story goes as Stuart Gordon tells it, because on the Blu-ray there's a couple of extras, one of which is an interview with Stuart Gordon. Basically, he says he was in Charles Band's office and there was a poster on the wall. Basically, Charles Band had made the poster art before he had made any kind of a movie. And it was a poster on the wall that said Castle Freak with a picture of a sort of freakish-looking man being whipped. Stuart asked him what that movie was about, and he said, it's about a castle and a freak.
That single detail makes it seem unbelievable to me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether or not he just made it. It seems like something Ed Wood would do, or some really old B-movie kind of stuff where it's like, we have to commission a poster, and then we have to write a script and film this in 3 weeks, so we have to get it out into the Tucson, Arizona market before, my mob connections come
Well, the
hunt
thing is,
for me.
I rewatched Ed Wood, coincidentally, probably maybe 3 or 4 days before I watched this movie. And the same thing does happen in that movie, where the film producer has a poster for a, quote, sex change movie.
Yeah, that's the Glenn or Glenda part of the movie, right?
Yeah, and he just, the producer came up with the title and the poster art and said, write a script, make a movie, just bring it in under this amount of money. Which, again, is sort of what happened. Charles Band said, you can do what you want with it if you've got $500,000. And he made a movie with $500,000, for good or ill.
It seems like an insane way of financing and making movies, but also a really fun way of doing it. I would love if more studios, I'm sure Full Moon occasionally do it still. I mean, it's Full Moon Entertainment. If you listen to this, you know the kind of stuff they put out. But bigger studios like Warner Brothers, if they just commissioned a poster and a title and it was catchy enough to think, this will sell to the kids.
Yeah.
This will get bums in couches for HBO on the go.
Yeah.
What's it called? What do they call it over there? HBO Max.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit different now because back then you would have had either the theatrical release or a video release, whereas now the best you can hope for is for it to go onto Netflix. And,
Straight to streaming. And trying to find a good one of those straight to streaming movies, it's like trying to find a bloody needle in a time stack. It took me a while to remember what it was called.
I had completely forgotten about that trailer. I haven't even seen the film.
I don't think... Who has seen Needle in a Time Stack? No one.
The editor?
Surely the host of the Orlando Bloom podcast, Bloomberg.
Stuart, once again, did take a little bit of inspiration from a H.P. Lovecraft story for this. It's a very, very short story called The Outsider, which...
ironic, because they spend a lot of this movie inside.
Almost entirely.
They should call it The Insider. Get nominated for Best Picture and Best Director in 1999. It's a real movie.
Okay.
The Insider.
All right, fine. You're a font of Oscars knowledge, Tim. Has a horror film ever won an Oscar for Best Picture?
Silence of the Lambs, 1991. It was the last movie to do the full sweep. Picture, director, screenplay, lead actor, lead actress.
Wow.
The only other times that's happened, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975, and It Happened One Night, 1934.
Wow.
I'm watching all of the Best Picture Oscar winners this year.
Yep.
Follow me on Letterboxd at Mr. Timothy Clark. You want to see in-depth and insightful reviews? Well, follow someone else, idiots.
Yeah, so basically I did read the short story of The Outsider, and basically it informs one scene of this film, which we'll get to.
I would love if the one scene is just like a man got drunk at a bar once.
No, it's one of the better scenes in the film, but it is once again that thing of Stuart Gordon taking a very, very short, sparse H.P. Lovecraft story and just running with it, which he does. There's a couple of facts from the IMDb trivia that appear to come from a video zone behind-the-scenes featurette thing. One is that the makeup guys, you know, when they're sort of talking to them about all the makeup and prosthetics they do, they also go, we also have some real brains for this. And then there's footage of Stuart and I guess some effects guys playing with some goopy brain stuff in a scene. Surely you can't use real brain.
Well, I saw that as well. I haven't watched the video zone behind the scenes featurette, as you were mentioning, but I was guessing they're just sheep brains or cow brains or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, you can just buy sheep brains in the supermarket.
There's also another scene where someone says that the film has been blessed by the Pope.
Yeah, absolutely 100% did not happen.
No.
That's some real, speaking of castles, William Castle bullshit, where it's like, oh, this is so scary, I need a nurse on hand in case anyone faints. It's the old carny bullshit, which works.
They always tell those stories of horror movies of people being taken away. I think it was maybe The Exorcist where they had stories of people being taken away in ambulances in the first screening because they were so scared. It's like, no. That'd be fun, though, if you could just get the Pope to come in and bless anything for the right price. It's like, you know, $500, I come here, I bless anything. I bless your microwave. I bless you, baby.
I'll do it for $500 cash.
Yeah.
No invoices.
No.
Let's not involve the tax man.
I do this just for you as a friend.
I'm a little bit Italian, so this is okay.
So Jeff in the behind the scenes feature, he also seems to say that Stuart wanted a lot less of the humor that came out, you know, in something like Reanimator. I guess he kind of sees it a little bit as a negative. I mean, I'm guessing based on what he was saying because, you know, he was obviously saying that the humor was something that was quite successful about Reanimator.
And I think that's quite present in a lot of Stuart Gordon movies. I really like him as a director. Reanimator's great. From Beyond is shit but fun. Dagon's good. Pit and Pendulum as well. That was Stuart Gordon. Yeah, and that had a bit of humor in it and a bit of camp, overacting in parts as well, which kind of broke it up, which I was expecting a lot more of in this one. Jeffrey is very grounded until a certain point, and then he goes absolutely ham.
It's bound to go ham at some point in a movie about something like this.
Of course. And may I just say, Jeffrey is doing a fantastic job in this. I think he's great. I really see the appeal. I see what you see here. He's a very handsome man in this.
He's so handsome in
this.
He's
very handsome in this.
This
is great. This is peak. He's got wonderful... It's hard to describe. He's got wonderful peak, kind of floppish dad 90s hair.
Yeah.
You know
he's got the Bill Pullman hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got big Pullman vibes in this.
Yeah. Pullman isn't going to do the things that Jeffrey did in this movie.
No. Pullman will have maybe one glass of wine and then drive his kids home safely.
Yeah. Pullman will sleep with his wife and only his wife. And even then, the lights are off and it's missionary. And he leaves his jumper on.
Yeah, the best way.
Barbara Crampton also said that Stuart wanted this to feel like a documentary. Take from that what you will. I mean, I don't know if it was like classic documentary, but more like a documentary than something like Reanimator. So
Right. I mean, yes, compared to Reanimator, yes, I can see the documentary influences. There's a lot more handheld shots, a lot more natural lighting. I just assumed it was down to the budget and that they shoot it really quick in a castle that they somehow owned.
The Blu-ray, if you've got it, or if you are thinking of buying it, this might also be on YouTube somewhere, but it includes an interview with Stuart Gordon, Jeffrey Combs, and Barbara Crampton. And they are being interviewed by William Shatner.
Oh.
Shatner is a terrible interviewer.
Oh, no.
He's terrible. He is such a weird unit. He talks over them a lot. He's weirdly judgy. He's a very strange man. But he also opens the conversation with Stuart mentions that apparently the castle they shot in was haunted. And William Shatner says, Stuart, talk to me about haunting.
Where's Lisa gone? Bill, how did you get into my home? Was there any context in that featurette why William Shatner was doing the interview? Was it a Comic-Con kind of deal?
No. I think William Shatner just did these this series of kind of like a Joe Bob Briggs sort of thing, like where he would like present a movie.
Right.
Yeah, so it'd be like, I can't remember what it was called. I think you can find them on Tubi because there'll be like a version of a movie that's just a normal version, and then there's like the William Shatner Presents version. Yeah, I think it's usually just him talking to the cast, and then he's like, and here's the movie, and then that's it.
Sure. Okay.
For whatever reason.
Hey, good work if you can get it.
He doesn't need it, and
No.
he's bad at it.
Yeah.
Shat, he's a weird dude.
Yeah. To be fair, looking up Tubi and watching William Shatner Presents Doll Man sounds like I had to write a parody of you, Lisa. Something that you would be doing at your home.
At any given night.
At any given night.
Yeah.
You put down the biography of a 30s actor I haven't heard of. You make yourself a nice cup of tea, and you sit back and watch the tube.
That is alarmingly accurate.
Yep, there we go. Former roommates, in case you can't tell.
Probably the last book I read was a biography of Cary Grant.
All right.
Oh, I'm a parody of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Castle Freak.
All right.
So we open on a harried old woman who's taking some food down to someone who lives in a dungeon. You already know that she's not a great person because she has a giant fucking whip. It's like a big cat of nine tails.
Absolutely cat of nine tails with some chains in there as well.
Yeah,
The whip looked sick.
The whip looked good. It looked heavy. Yeah. It's sort of like it's got like spikes on the tails. It's very horrible.
Wouldn't want to bloody meet that cat. No, actually do cut that one out. Please do.
No, now I'm going to leave it.
Damn it. She's going to put it in twice. Before we get too far into the plot, she's hacking a big stale piece of bread
Yep.
and a big salami.
Yep.
And it looks delicious. It honestly looks like a really fun, like plowman's lunch kind of deal with a big piece of bread, big piece of salami.
Rustic.
Get some cheese in there. You're having a good time.
Rustic Italian feast.
Molto bene.
Oh.
Bella
Molto-
dinner.
Mangia the bread. So the person in the dungeon, she's whipping this person who is chained up in the dungeon. They are like
The titular castle.
Yes, we are in the castle that we are going to spend 90% of the movie in. The woman dies soon after, seemingly of a heart attack. Not a super fun opener, but it sets you up, I guess, for what's going to happen.
After the credits, we join Jeffrey and Barb and an Italian man and their daughter.
Yes.
All three of them have
Yep.
a daughter, and they're driving through the picturesque Italian scenery.
Oh, it looks beautiful. I mean, we don't actually see very much of Italy in this movie because when they're not in the castle, they're in maybe the front yard of their castle, and then there's a couple of scenes in like a bar and a cafe and a police station. That's about it.
For a movie set entirely in Italy, you go so long without even remembering that you're in Italy. You forget about it easily.
Yeah.
When people start talking Italian, you just think, all right, that's a kooky guy in town.
There's a lot of scenes where people speak Italian to each other, and there's no subtitles. So people, I think, found that a bit jarring. Even though you can assume by context you know what they're saying, but I kind of like that. I kind of like when, because I know that happens in. There's a couple of Quentin Tarantino movies where that happens, where he hasn't put subtitles when there are people speaking in languages other than English, which I kind of like because it puts you in the frame, in the mind frame of the character that doesn't understand what these two people are saying, and you want to know because they're probably talking about you, and it's very upsetting.
Famous example of that recently, the new West Side Story. Spielberg decided not to subtitle a lot of the Spanish spoken in the movie. And I think he came out and said, well, if I subtitle that, it's kind of giving more power to the English language over Spanish, so, keep it on an even keel. I do not think that is the case with Castle Freak, but like you were saying, it doesn't make a difference. You can understand it through context clues.
Well, the family is the Reillys. So as I said, we've got Dad John, Jeffrey Combs, Peak Daddy. He is the reason that we're at the castle. He seems to have a aunt who was a duchess, and he has inherited the castle from her. Very silly premise.
Exactly. You know that thing they make fun of in The Simpsons? They're doing this for real now.
Yep.
A duchess who has died and through a long-lost relative, he has come into possession of owning this castle.
Yep, and they have to spend one night there.
I was fully expecting that to come into play. It's just like, you only get it if you live here a month.
Yeah, but they are moving in there, and they are. But I guess the difference is that Jeff is very keen to sell it and get rid of the assets and stuff. We've also got his wife Susan, Barbara Crampton, and their daughter Rebecca, played by Jessica Dollarhide, who didn't go on to do anything after this, which is strange.
I
Because
saw
she's
that.
quite good for a relatively young actress.
Yes, very. She was great, and
Yeah.
I was looking, at her IMDb. Yeah, I think this is her only movie.
It's definitely her last one, yeah. Well, so Rebecca is also blind. That comes into play in a minute. And we can already tell that not all is well between mum and dad. They are not getting along. They also have a slightly creepy housekeeper, Agnese, played by Elizabeth Carser, who doesn't really want them there. So she's not as bad as like a Mrs. Danvers, but she's also just, she's keeping them at arm's length. So we know that not all is right between John and Susan because John comes to Susan in the night, desperately trying to get them to reconnect. He's like, please, I miss you. I miss you, Susan. She's like, I can't forgive you. It's a little bit soapy, soap opera.
I thought this was going to be a nice family who get terrorized by a castle freak. Turns out it's just a terrible family who's gone through some tragedies who get attacked by a castle freak. And like I was saying, I love Barbara, and she does a great job.
She's not given as much to do as previous projects because she is very much just the wife in this, but she is very good at playing, the sort of the tortured wife in this scenario because her and John are both grieving very strongly because as we are made aware through flashback, John was an alcoholic. And he caused a car accident that blinded Rebecca and killed their 5-year-old son, JJ.
Now, they never mention it, but 100% JJ stands for John Jr. An insane thing for a dad in the 90s to still be doing.
Yeah. John hears some strange noises in the night, so of course he goes to investigate. What else are you going to do?
Hang on, that sounds like stale bread being cut.
Do I hear a sausage?
That's the worst improv show I've ever seen. I think someone said sausage.
I think someone said hard salami. The spooky noises are coming from the dark, wet dungeon of the scary castle. Classic horror situation. What's odd is that he calls his son's name as if he hopes it's him. It's very much going for that the real ghost is grief kind of thing. You see it so much in all the elevated horror movies now, but you don't expect it from Castle Freak.
No.
He bumps into the housekeeper who tells him the story of the noises. The Duchess that he inherited the castle from had a son, Giorgio, died when he was 5, mysteriously. And the Duchess never left the castle again and apparently went quite mad.
All this talk about the Duchess. What is this? Best costume design winner, Oscars 2008?
I don't even know that movie.
Didn't even look it up. It's a Keira Knightley movie that I will never watch.
Yeah,
Who cares about the Duchess?
I need you, listener, to know that Tim is not referencing it. He hasn't got his phone open. He hasn't got a book anywhere. This is all in his stupid brain.
Yeah, and hey, I could also be wrong.
Possibly.
I might be thinking of The Young Victoria, 2010.
Oh, God.
Also a nominee? Who cares?
Rebecca and John are doing inventory of everything in the castle. They can sell it all off. They find another creepy room, which is a nursery full of toys and an old rocking horse.
Yeah, we're getting into real cabin in the woods territory.
Yeah.
Just uncovered, creepy paraphernalia in a dead child's room.
And everything's covered with white sheets, as is so often the case. It's just asking for trouble covering everything with white sheets like that. He finds the Duchess's old room. He finds the big whip, which he thinks is a bit odd, but he also doesn't think it's that odd because he just kind of looks at it and goes, oh, and puts it back down.
Yeah, the kind of reaction you would have if you knew an old lady passed away and you were in her room for some reason snooping around and found a big whip. Your first reaction isn't, oh, classic old lady whipping her tortured, freakish son downstairs. He's probably thinking, Grandma can get it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just like, you know what? No judgment.
Bella.
Molto bene. He also finds a photo album which engages his attention so fully that he doesn't notice A, a weird loud scratching noise, and B, his blind daughter wandering off alone into a strange castle.
For a guy who keeps professing his innocence and how he wants to heal the family, he's really not caring about his blind daughter roaming a huge castle, which we learn later has 140 rooms.
Yeah, which is weird because we only ever see probably 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's weird how in this huge castle everyone keeps ending up in the same rooms. The castle also comes with a very nice ginger cat who leads her down to the dungeon. She can hear the groaning of a man down there. The man can also hear someone coming and he's like, oh, finally, somebody. Then he eats the fucking cat.
Yeah.
Very upset about that.
Yeah, I saw that cat and I was like, well, this is going to be an enjoyable time for this cat to enjoy watching on screen for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. He manages to escape his chains by biting his thumb off and loosening his chains and breaking down the door. He's loose. This is the titular quote-unquote freak of the title. I'm going to call him Giorgio because that's his name, and I don't really like the word freak. It makes me feel a bit yucky.
When Giorgio breaks off his thumb and slips the shackles off and then holds it above his head victorious, that was great. That was really cool. Great practical effects. I mean, across the board, really good makeup and practical effects in this.
Yeah.
It looks cheap and grimy, but they really put a lot of effort into the actual blood and guts and gore of it.
Another link to Pit and the Pendulum is that the man under all that makeup as Giorgio is Jonathan Fuller, who was the lead in Pit and the Pendulum, the male lead.
I saw that, and then I saw that he was the lead in Pit and Pendulum, and I tell you what, can't remember a fucking thing about the lead of Pit and Pendulum. It's all Jeffrey Combs, Oliver Reed, and Lance Henriksen.
Yeah. He saves the day, thank you. So Rebecca keeps trying to tell Susan that there's someone else in the castle, and of course she doesn't believe her. She's like, oh, it's just your imagination, or it's just the house, or stop being stupid. The next scene is quite heartbreaking, I think, and it's where the outsider, the H.P. Lovecraft story, comes in. It's when Giorgio is wandering the castle and he happens upon an old mirror. And as he's approaching it, he's like, oh, what is that in the mirror? And he very slowly realizes that it's him in the mirror, and that what years of torment and imprisonment has done to his face and his body. And he makes this very sad little groan, which is quite sad, smashes the mirror to pieces.
The weirdest part about that is the reflection looked like Groucho Marx just wearing the same clothing, and they kept doing this hand raising and looking around. Like the famous routine from the Marx Brothers.
That's a solid reference that everyone is going to know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shout out to anyone listening to this in 1935.
Ha-cha-cha. How about that war?
Yeah. Hope this is blasting out of your car radio, which is a new invention.
Oh, and also for the rest of the film, Giorgio is going to be covered in a sheet because he has realized
He's a ghost.
Well, yeah, because he's in the clan. He has realized what he looks like, and so he covers himself up for much of it.
I did not pick up on that. I didn't realize. I thought he was just injured or like covering himself with a sheet for camouflage. I didn't pick up that it was just a reflection of his own bloody inner turmoil for how he looks.
Yeah, he's tormented. Giorgio finds Rebecca's room and starts perving on her under the sheets, which is gross, but thankfully she wakes up and can tell that someone is there. And there is a little bit of, I don't think it's meant to be silly, but it is very silly when Giorgio runs out of the room, John and Susan run into it. It's ridiculous that they didn't see him on the way in. But John runs out of the room and he's trying to find Giorgio. And Giorgio has very cleverly disguised himself as a covered-up chair. Like a Scooby-Doo-ass shit.
Yeah. For a guy who's been kept in a dungeon all his life, he knows the lay of the land really well.
Yeah, and he's also like, oh, I can make the perfect shape of a chair and not move at all so that John doesn't notice me.
They really should have just put in the Transformers sound effect as he turns into a chair.
John finds the dungeon as well as what looks like a family tomb that seems to hold Giorgio's remains. And because Giorgio died at the same age that John's son was, the photo of young Giorgio looks exactly like John's deceased son. Now,
you couldn't have asked for a worse case scenario. Because they had the photo that looked exactly like JJ, I was fully expecting somehow for the Castle Freak to turn out to be JJ who survived.
Makes no sense. It makes even less sense than what actually does happen.
Yeah. But also, who gives a shit? It's Full Moon Entertainment. Nothing makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
I was also fully expecting, like, they've got a blind daughter and they've got a freak running around. Fully expecting, like, a Beauty and the Beast romance between them where she learns, hey, it's not what you look like on the outside. It's what happens inside. You're a murderer.
I think what I didn't quite understand is, did the Duchess put Giorgio down into the dungeon because he had some sort of disability? Or did she keep him in there, and he became physically disabled, and he had a lot of issues because he had been down there for so long.
Yeah, the motivation behind Giorgio and Giorgio's mother, they don't get into it a lot, and it's something that always sticks in the back of your mind. Like, how sympathetic should I be to Giorgio?
Could have used a little bit more lore.
I could have used a scene of Giorgio as a kid. I watched the House of Wax remake recently.
Oh, yeah.
Where it starts out with twin boys, one's good, one's bad, and then for the rest of the movie you don't know which one's which, who turned out to be the bad twin, who turned out to be the evil twin. Something like that, where it establishes early on either we should feel sympathy for him, who got turned into a murderer while he was chained up, or it was just a bad kid that they had to keep down there.
Jeff has a good crying scene here, which is nice, because he doesn't get to have a sook much in his films.
He does bring a lot of gravitas to it. There's a reason you do this podcast. He's a good actor.
He's a good actor.
Yeah. He can do it all.
Yeah.
He's got range.
His character is interesting because he isn't really sympathetic. Like, he does some terrible things in this film, but at the end of the day, he does love his family, and he is trying. So it's an interesting story. The cops come, but they're not much help. John takes Susan down to Giorgio's grave plaque, but the picture is gone. So now she just thinks he's crazy. They have an argument where John believes his son's ghost is haunting the castle, but Susan is having none of it. Here's a little taste of what's going on between Susan and John.
This is different.
No, it's always the same. It's never your fault. Your father was responsible for your drinking problem. The university fired you because you were politically incorrect. And now you're trying to use JJ's ghost.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. It's not JJ's ghost. It's you, John. It's you. You were the one who was driving that car, drunk. You blinded Becky. You killed our son.
So what's left? You just punishing me?
Yes, because God didn't. He just let you walk away without a scratch.
What do you want me to do? I wish I could go back. I wish it had been me.
Oh, so do I.
John is understandably very upset. He races to the rooftop. He considers jumping, but is too afraid. So he goes for another option, drinking at the local tavern. He's off the wagon. Off the wagon.
All right, Seinfeld, calm down.
Yeah. I don't know, because it's off the wagon if you're back on the drinking. That's how it works.
Yeah, this wagon sounds shit.
Yeah, I don't want to be on this wagon. It's boring.
Someone stop this wagon. I want to get off. I love the tavern scene. It's all shot in one. It's all one shot.
Yeah.
Jeffrey's making a meal of this scene. He's drunk acting, slurring,
Yeah.
wildly articulating with his wine glass.
He's very drunk because he seems to have fallen asleep standing up at the bar. He does put a lot of work into his drunk acting. I mean, I assume he's been drunk in real life, but he really chooses scenery when he's playing drunk. He is approached by a pretty...
Well, you got to line your stomach if you're drinking.
Yeah, the eating's cheating. He is approached by a pretty lady in skimpy clothing who...
Speaking of eating's cheating, coming up.
We got to understand she is a worker of the sexual persuasion. This is...
Everyone except Jeff can realize this immediately.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. He seems to think he's just being approached by a nice lady.
Yeah. I'll fuck you for the money. Well, you seem like a lovely gal. Just here from church.
Yeah. You're dressed in what could only be described as a couple of sort of bandanas.
And this scene, what I really liked about this scene with Jeffrey in particular is it's the typical very, very drunk man chatting up a lady at the bar scene. He's getting very close to her, like physically. He's offering to buy her drinks, standing very close to her as well, not picking up that she's a sex worker. And she's very good as well. She's completely in unsubtitled Italian.
Yeah.
But you can really tell that she is, trying to pick him up in this bar, but also is trying to just stay safe. It's a weird push and pull kind of dynamic they've got. I really like this scene.
Yeah, so this is Silvana, played by Raffaella Offidani. A cop gets him to leave, and it is I'm pretty sure it's the same cop we see throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, same cop.
Who I've got his name somewhere later. So he's like, you're really drunk. Get out of here, you. So he takes her back to Chateau Reilly, where they have not decided to use one of the 150 rooms in the house. They've decided to hang out and fuck in the dungeon. Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
You go to the coldest, dankest part of the house. I know it's what I like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what gets women off. A lot of dust.
A lot of dust, a lot of mildew,
A lot of wine that's gone off.
pointy rocks. Wine doesn't go off, Tim. It ages well.
One thing that I know all women love is a housekeeper coming downstairs with a single candle and a big nightgown that they're wearing.
Yeah. Ebenezer Scrooge-looking candle
Yeah.
in a tray shit.
You there, boy, what day is it? Today's the day I growl out this lady. And go the growl he does.
Doesn't he just? With vigour.
You thought a pussy got eaten before with the freak?
Oh no! Look,
Woo!
This scene's a bit rough. They make out, and before long, Giorgio is sort of watching like a real creeper. And what follows is a surprisingly graphic sex scene for what
Very
I
graphic.
imagined this type of movie. You get tits and bush. What is most surprising is that not only does John go down on Silvana, but we don't get any scene of her returning the favor. Not that I care. Not that I think that he's entitled to it or anything, but it's just weird to have that as a sex scene in a movie, because normally in sex scenes in films, you don't even get men going down on women.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So this is the second, that I know of, second Stuart Gordon movie with an explicit scene of cunnilingus. Except this time, his head's attached to his bloody body this time.
You know what? I will say, in the slightest defense of that scene in Reanimator, he never actually goes down on Barbara Crampton. He goes to, and he is interrupted by Herbert West.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So the head doesn't actually give head. He wants to, but he can't. But yeah, so movies in general so rarely have characters eating pussy. It's very quick, and
Hey, I love it when it shows up. It's like a short little Jane Campion movie in the middle of this.
Jeff does. Well, I think there's a couple of movies where he has some sort of sex scene. I mean, I know The Evil Clergyman. There's a sex scene with Barbara Crampton.
Listeners can't see this, but Lisa's doing some of the worst acting you've ever seen. Oh, there's some... Oh, God, if only I had a showreel of all of them saved on my laptop. Jeez Louise, I gotta rack my brain about this one.
Oh,
Well, there is one in The Evil Clergyman at timestamp 10:45. Goes for approximately 2.5 minutes.
look, I just think it's, I think that Jeffrey Combs does a lot for Stuart Gordon, including this very graphic depiction of eating pussy. They have very quick sex, and he is quite ashamed, and he wants her to leave. It's very quick, by the way. Come on, man.
Yeah, quick.
No, not average. Not average at all.
No.
Well, but Giorgio's also been watching this whole time, and he's like, "Ooh, what is that? I'm intrigued. I'm titillated. What's happening?"
Feels like something should be moving.
Silvana goes to leave.
Demands the money.
Well, demands the money, of course, and then Jeff is like, "Oh yeah, of course," because again, he didn't know, but he's ashamed of himself because
You didn't want to go the growl for free? I'm a drunk dad.
I'm hot Jeffrey Combs.
Every 20-year-old Italian lady's dream.
Hey, you could do worse than 1995 Jeffrey Combs, all right?
I was in From Beyond. So she goes to leave.
So she goes to leave. She's wandering around the castle trying to find a way out, and she's accosted by Giorgio, who throws a sheet over her head. That cop that we met before comes looking for Silvana the next morning. John refuses to let him in. He's immediately the main suspect now,
Yeah.
because Silvana has gone missing.
And Barbara Crampton is next to him as they hear the news that you brought a lady back to the castle, and now she is gone missing.
She's not only upset that her husband is possibly a murderer, but also that he's a philanderer.
What's worse?
I know.
Murder.
I don't know. Who's to say?
Who's to say? Hey.
Society?
Well, I guess if it's illegal to cheat on your wife and then murder someone, lock me up.
If it's illegal to eat pussy...
Baby, if it's illegal to eat pussy, they call me Dillinger.
When we see Silvana again, she's chained up as Giorgio was with the wrist clamps. And he tries to replicate what he saw her doing with John.
This is where the motivation and what Giorgio can understand, what he is as a person, really comes into play, because he seems initially like a child. He's had no experience with the world. He doesn't know what's happening. Just that he enjoyed seeing it, wants to replicate it. She's obviously very, very frightened.
Well, yeah. So he brought some wine, and he's like, "Hey, let's drink this and kiss like you did like you did before." She goes along with it, kind of obviously, just trying to get out of this situation, until she realizes that he doesn't have a penis.
Yeah.
So we get a good shot of his balls, or, I mean, I don't even know if...
A great shot of the balls.
Great shot. Whether or not they're really Jonathan Fuller's balls, I can't say. Yeah, so he doesn't have a penis, and there's no... Again, that's not explained either, but she's obviously quite shocked by that. Anyway, there's a pretty grotesque scene where he bites her nipples off. That's horrible.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere, and that was like, whoa!
Yeah.
All right, now the movie's kicking off. Now it's going to be a gore fest from now on. It's going to be crazy. But it was the how low budget it is and how exploitative the whole thing seems kind of puts a damper on the scene. Like if it was just a fraction more goofy, looked a little bit better, then I could get on board with this, but it's just gross.
There's a fine line, isn't there, between that kind of... You go into a movie either expecting a subject to be taken quite seriously or quite schlocky. And this movie, I think, tries to do both. So it goes for the really high, gory, schlocky stuff of tearing the nipples off, while trying to pair it with this quite tortured Giorgio character. I think sometimes it works better than others because, it's a Stuart Gordon movie. The famous thing that everyone always says about Stuart Gordon is his phrase was always, more is not enough. So Stuart Gordon always wants to go the high octane when it comes to things. And in this, I think that maybe it was crossing over the line a bit.
Well, I do prefer Castle Freak to From Beyond.
Really?
I think so.
Interesting.
I might have just been in a wrong headspace when I watched it for the first time. I didn't really get into From Beyond. I thought I liked the experience of watching it. I remember liking the experience of watching it. I just think it's a worse made film than Castle Freak.
Do you mean in terms of plot or effects, or because I mean the physical effects and the special effects in From Beyond I think are amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, I loved all of that.
But you just mean the story.
Yeah, I think the story, it never really engaged me, but I wasn't there for that. I was there for the schlockiness. I was there for, the crazy effects. So I think if they were going for a bit more of that kind of style with this, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But like you were saying, it's the grey area that kind of dilutes the whole thing. A lowering tide sinks all ships. It's the reverse of a phrase. A rising tide lifts all ships.
Oh, you're so wise. So we cut back to some of the family drama. We see Susan packing up to leave with Rebecca. We also see John meeting with his lawyer. The lawyer gets a call from the housekeeper saying that she's found Sylvana's handbag in the castle, so it looks like John is in some trouble.
And the housekeeper and the lawyer are brother and sister.
Yes. He says that Sylvana was in a relationship with the cop that we've been seeing this whole time, Forte, and that they have a kid together. That is only important for the end scene, I think, and we'll talk about that when it comes up. The lawyer also tells him the, quote, truth about what's been happening. He tells him that John's American father was married to the Duchess. They had a child, and then John's father abandoned them before coming to America to start a new family with the Duchess's sister. Escandalo. I mean, it is very strange that we're meant to believe that Jeffrey Combs is next generation Italian.
Yes, that was weird. Also very weird, I would have bet good money on us eventually seeing an old, faded, sepia-toned photo of Jeffrey Combs in a fake mustache. Would have bet the house on that, but yeah, we never see it.
We do see a torn sepia photo of an American soldier who we are meant to believe is Jeffrey Combs' dad. Looks nothing bloody like him. He must have got all of his looks from the Duchess's sister. Yeah, so there's that whole family drama that's also going on. When we cut back to Giorgio, though, things have gotten much worse. He has tried to replicate what John did to Sylvana, and he's done it a bit differently. He's basically taken the term eating pussy quite literally.
For the second time.
Yep. It's a mess. It's a mess down there.
It's a bloody mess. Bring a towel. It's a bloody mess down there.
Oh, the housekeeper stumbles on Sylvana as she's dying. And then the housekeeper is beaten to death by Giorgio as Sylvana passes away. It's horrible, and it's mainly horrible because it does seem to come out of nowhere in a film like this.
Yes.
Yeah. As we're saying.
Yeah. We were just mentioning it before. It's that fine line between the schlock of his more fun movies versus, the drama that they had to put into this because the budget was so low. They had to make it more grimy and gross and scary on that level.
Yeah, and I like all of the family drama stuff. Like, I think it's really nice, new way of seeing both Jeff and Barbara. They're getting to do more different things. They're being a lot more they're allowed to be a lot more adult because obviously this is a good 10 years after Reanimator.
Yeah, they're very effective as believable parents. I think they would have been much more believable if they kept their real names, because Jeff and Barbara sound much more like parents than John and Susan.
Susan uses the term whipping boy when she's chewing John out about something, and that seems to light a fire in his brain. Somehow he connects the term whipping boy to the whip that he found in the Duchess's room, and the whole story just falls into place for him.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
So obviously the next most logical step is to dig up Giorgio's grave.
The cutest little coffin you've ever seen.
It's adorable. It's so miserable. Oh, when he takes out the coffin, there's nothing in it. So now he knows the truth.
Well, actually, I'll hold you to that. There's actually 2 rocks.
Two rocks.
Out.
That's true.
They're like, they put rocks in the coffin to simulate the weight of a dead child. And then 2 of the smallest rocks you've ever seen roll out.
A body isn't meant to roll around like it's ski balls. Like he tries to explain the truth to everybody that Giorgio never died and that the Duchess kept him alive to torture him. I guess the theory is that the Duchess was so devastated after being abandoned by Jeff's father, John's father, that she took out her frustrations on their son.
Right.
But again, there's some grey area around that story.
And also Jeffrey is making a lot of logical leaps in the story that make sense for a deranged, grieving alcoholic that also turn out to be 100% true. An unreliable narrator where he's like going the growl on the Italian lady and then, yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here.
So I inherited this castle. Pretty crazy, right?
And that's when everything changed.
And then Summer of '69 starts playing.
We thought that summer would never end. I thought my son's never going to die. How young we were. All Along the Watchtower starts blaring out. Dun, 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 dun.
You're like young Jeff, but he's just got slightly longer hair and sunglasses. Sadly, they all find Sylvana and the housekeeper's bodies. So it's the cop, it's the lawyer, it's John, and it's Susan. John is taken away because obviously he's the prime suspect now, which if you don't believe that there's, some dude running around the castle, absolutely John seems like the most logical next step.
1,000%. He's an alcoholic who took a sex worker back to his house. She's gone missing. The purse is there. He's saying, there's a freak going around killing everyone.
Yeah. And
they take so long to arrest him.
Yeah. They leave a couple of cops with Susan and Rebecca in the interim. Giorgio somehow manages to nab one of the cops by sort of garroting him and pulling him up inside a chimney.
Yeah.
Or like whatever the bit above a stove is. It's a chimney, right?
Just like a smoke ventilation.
Yeah, whatever that is above your stoves that stops your house burning down.
Yeah, a roof.
Yeah.
It's classic, like, goon walking around, just like, what's that noise?
Yep.
Looks up, gets pulled up.
It is amazing how strong Giorgio is, despite having had no exercise, being beaten for 40 years, and living on bread and sausage.
It's all the protein in the salami.
Maybe despite how much the Duchess seemed to obviously hate her son, maybe she put some weights down there for him so he could, strengthen. Apparently, Jonathan Fuller did lose an incredible amount of weight for this role.
I would guess purely through sweat. With the amount of prosthetics he's got all over his body.
6 hours, I think they said, that it would take every day to get into that makeup and prosthetics.
Yeah, that's crazy. And he's in it so much of the movie.
Yeah, he's in it the whole thing. And
he's the titular castle.
He is. He looks great as a castle.
It's a living. But it's a drawbridge. It's opening up as they're talking.
John is trying to plead his case and the cops are not having it. Jeff is doing really well as this sort of incredibly frustrated dude who's just trying to help his wife and daughter.
Not to go back, what if a castle saw like a sexy castle walking near it and then the drawbridge fell out and a big tongue rolled out? Awooga! Look at the turrets on that one.
Oh, so the drawbridge is the mouth.
Drawbridge is the mouth.
Oh, I thought the drawbridge was the tongue and it was going to go up like fadoing, like an erection.
That also works.
Yeah.
Also works. Come see Chimp Cop. And also the sexy castle is just the same looking castle, just with some massive norks.
What are the norks? Is it towers?
No, just tits.
No, okay. Castle with Tits.
Castle with Tits.
Yeah, that's the sequel to this movie.
Castle Tits?
Castle Tits, yeah. It's like Lady Freak.
Yeah.
It's
That's like-
the exact same freak, but she's got a bow in her hair.
Yeah, yeah. A real red flag for a relationship if he keeps going around, oi, Castle Tits, hand me that, will you?
Lucky that my breasts are small and humble, so you don't confuse them with castles. So Giorgio has killed the cops now, and he knocks out Susan because he wants Rebecca. Takes her back to the dungeon and chains her up. John is knocked out by the cop, but that gives him a good opportunity to escape. This police station is alarmingly easy to get out of. There's just an open window.
It's summer in Italy. Everyone's too hot to do proper police work.
Yeah.
All the windows are open.
It's, and it's raining. It's like probably one of those hot summer rains. It's like, it's so humid. Just get some air in here. Doesn't matter if people escape. Giorgio keeps showing Rebecca the photo from the grave. And then he realizes that she's blind, and he takes off the sheet that's been covering his face this whole time. I took from this that he feels comfortable with her because he believes that she won't judge him for what he looks like.
Mm-hmm. This is where I thought the Beauty and the Beast stuff was going to come in.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's pretty much smashed immediately.
Well, yeah,
she's having none of this.
Especially because just before Giorgio takes her to the dungeon, Rebecca is talking, because she thinks Susan is still in the room. Rebecca is talking about how when she gets a boyfriend, it'll be a real love because she won't care what he looks like because she's about to see him.
They're laying this on thick.
I know, and it's like, it just really seemed like that's what it was setting it up for.
Yeah.
But if you really think about it for a second, it's like they have not set up Giorgio to be a love interest in any way. He is purely the villain, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of stuff that makes him incredibly sympathetic. But it's like they wanted a monster movie. You can't make this intricate, complex drama while also making kind of a schlocky monster movie.
Maybe the real monster was prejudice. Or the murderer.
The real monster is alcoholism, I think you'll find.
I guess at the end of the day, the real monster was the freak in the basement who escaped.
A bit like Society.
Yeah. Mainly the freak who escaped and killed everyone.
No,
including me. I'm Jeffrey Combs as a ghost. Talk about being covered with a sheet. What am I, a rocking horse? Keep going with the plot.
Giorgio starts to sort of kiss her, but he's just sort of like rubbing his bloody mouth on her shoulder. Susan does find them and offers herself in her daughter's place. This scene, I was trying to work out because there was a thing in the IMDb that said that, I think it's presumably this scene, where Susan is meant to, she realizes that Giorgio is attracted to breasts and stuff.
Yeah. At this point in the movie, I'm thinking, wow, a Stuart Gordon, Barbara Crampton, Jeffrey Combs movie where Barbara doesn't take her shirt off. What a progressive time we live in.
Like, I don't know why the version I was watching didn't have that, because apparently that scene was supposed to have Barbara Crampton taking her top and bra off, exposing herself to Giorgio in order to distract him and basically say, no, take me instead, so Rebecca could get away. And that's not in the version I have at all. And I have the Blu-ray version. I would have thought that would have been the unrated version.
You were mentioning a very interesting piece of IMDb trivia.
I don't know what version must have that scene in it. So maybe that scene isn't in any versions anymore. I'm not surprised it's in there, because Stuart Gordon apparently does like to get Barbara Crampton to take her top off and be manhandled by various villains in the films.
He really is a boobs man.
He's a boobs man. I think
I'm a boobs man too. My grandfather was half boob.
that only makes you a quarter boob then. Yeah, so now that I think of it, all four of the films that I can think of off the top of my head that are Stuart Gordon, Barbara Crampton movies she's got no tits out in all of them.
Good on you, Babs.
Good on you. I mean, look, she seems fine. Like, I don't think she would continue to work with Stuart Gordon if she felt exploited. I think her and Stuart were quite good friends. I also think that, I know that she has said that it was obviously, the scene in Reanimator was quite uncomfortable, but once I think they got around to From Beyond, she seemed a lot more comfortable with nudity on screen.
I mean, I might be talking out of school here. Her first movie was Body Double, the Brian De Palma movie, when she is never seen not nude. She is 100% nude in that movie.
Really?
Yeah, she plays the wife of the main character. He walks in, she is grinding on a guy in bed, totally nude, looks him in the eye and just like, what do you expect? And then, then he leaves.
Okay, so it isn't,
She gets her kid off in a lot of movies.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it may be the context, because a sex scene is very different to a film where you are being manhandled by zombies or groped by various villains.
Sorry to interrupt with another version. Boop, 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 boop. Breaking news. Uh-oh. Babbling About Barb is back. Or Babbling About Babs. Can't remember what I called it. If you're not following Barbara Crampton on all your social medias, you're missing out. She's a great follow.
She is great. Yeah.
Big drunk aunt energy. In the best way possible.
Yep.
Big bangles energy. She looks like she would ring with a lot of bangles on her arm. Doing great tweets. Doing a lot of great work on the social media. Very funny. Check her out.
She seems lovely.
She seems absolutely lovely.
Apparently, she's in the Castle Freak remake. Which we haven't mentioned, but there was a remake in 2020. I haven't seen it. I don't think I will. Yes, so yeah, if a Barbara Crampton movie ever pops up in your streaming service or whatever, give it a go.
Yeah,
because she's great. This really has become the Barbara Crampton podcast, hasn't it?
Yes, coup d'état. I killed JFK.
Look, I talk about Jeff every week. I probably don't talk about Barbara Crampton nearly enough. So Susan manages to drive a knife into Giorgio's back. It doesn't hold him off long, though, because they manage to escape, but they are very quickly in pursuit of Giorgio, who starts chasing through the house. Giorgio finds the Duchess's room and finds the big whip. Mm-hmm. And he sort of just goes on a bit of a whipping spree. He just starts whipping the stuff in the room. And it's not clear whether he's trying to attack Susan and Rebecca, or whether he's just sort of taking out his anger because the whip obviously brings back the memories of being whipped by the Duchess. I took it as the whip reminded him of everything he'd been through, and because he knew he was in the Duchess's room, he was kind of destroying her room in rage.
Right.
That's what I took.
I took it as whips are cool and they're fun to flick around.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that's a sick whip.
It did look cool.
Yeah, spiky and shit.
Honestly, if I just found a bullwhip on the ground, I'll flick it around anywhere.
Of course.
It's so cool.
Makes that cool noise.
I'll be doing the Indiana Jones thing with my mouth.
Yep. Trying to whip like something very small out of someone's hand, you just whip them in the face and kill them.
I'll try and do the Michelle Pfeiffer Batman Returns thing where she whips
the heads off the mannequins,
heads off, and then somehow like whip myself in the ass by accident,
and then skip away with the whip.
Yeah.
Gosh, she's great in that movie, isn't she? Anyway.
Oh no! What? Another podcast coming in? Fife talk.
He leaves the room without having found Susan and Rebecca, though, which is why I
the
thought...
Pied Pfeiffer.
Oh, that's good.
The Pied Pfeiffer, much better.
Yeah, you talk about pies and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I've suggested worse in other podcasts.
You suggested worse in the last 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The chase is back on soon enough, though. For whatever reason, they end up going up on the roof where it's pissing down rain and very dangerous. Good idea, Susan. Bitches in horror movies, right? Thankfully, John is in hero mode and appears from nowhere to fight Giorgio. Mm-hmm. Yes!
For a movie I watched dead sober, I've forgotten so much about it.
It's not as memorable as something like Reanimator or From Beyond, which is, whatever problems you have with those movies, they are very unique and very interesting. This scene, for some reason, like you were talking about Beauty and the Beast, it actually reminds me a lot of the scene where Gaston is fighting the Beast in the animated Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Because it's in the rain, it's on a roof.
Mm-hmm. The villagers are down with their torches and pitchforks.
Exactly.
There's a candle that can talk.
There's a bitchy clock. John,
it's animated.
Yep, it is animated. God, they're having a wild time. John beats the shit out of Giorgio, but he gets a lot of punches in too. And just as Giorgio is about to attack Susan and Rebecca, John makes a great sacrifice. Pulls himself off as the hero.
He pulls himself off.
Didn't mean it like that. Makes himself the hero of the piece. He grabs onto Giorgio's chain, from his wrist cuffs that he's been dragging along this whole time, and leaps from the roof to both of their deaths.
Tale as old as time.
You know what? This story, it is a tale as old as time. Isn't this the oldest story in the book?
Boy meets girl. Boy's a freak.
In his dying moments, John and Susan tell each other they love each other, and Susan forgives him.
Lovely little ending.
Lovely little ending. I mean, he died, but...
Well, he deserved it. And
no!
then after...
He was trying!
He was trying. He was very, very trying.
Just like you.
Trying to get her off in the wine cellar.
The last scene is a little bit confusing. The very last scene, because we watch Susan and Rebecca leave the castle with John's coffin, and Forte, the cop, and his kid, the kid that he had with Silvana, are standing there watching them leave. Forte removes his cop hat in respect. Mm-hmm. Susan smiles slightly.
Yeah.
End credits.
Now, I think I have an explanation for the ending. It was shot on $500,000. They were just running it through the castle, shooting random scenes, and they didn't have time to think of a great ending. I think it also is the small boy being there seems to be a reflection of the small boy that was Giorgio. who was, abandoned by his father and turned him to, again, we've talked about the fine line, what turned him into the titular character.
Yeah.
So I think they're just showing that, there's good in the world. This father can look after his little boy now.
Yeah, I guess.
Hi, I'm Stuart Gordon.
You might remember me from lots of films with tits in them.
Yeah, you might remember me from King of the Ants.
I haven't seen that one.
Neither have I.
Well, I haven't seen
I've read
it.
the Wikipedia synopsis several times. You might remember me from The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit.
You might remember me from Dagon.
You and I, we could do all of them.
Yeah, I was expecting it to have a kind of a spooky ending, because obviously we see what we assume to be the dead body of Giorgio and John after they've fallen off the roof. I was kind of expecting Susan and Rebecca to leave and for there to be just a shot in the window of Giorgio looking out.
Yeah.
Just peering down. Maybe he's he's pretty fucked up because he fell off a roof.
Yeah.
But
I was fully expecting them to drive off and then Forte to be like, wow, what a crazy scenario that happened at the castle. I wonder if they ran into her twins.
oh.
And then out comes Arnold Schwarzenegger. I look exactly like you.
This is how genetics works. The very first time I watched this, I wasn't expecting John to die because I was like, oh, this is meant to be a family drama. They're going to all end up happy together in the end because they'll sort out their personal differences through this trial that's happened. But I think it was pretty necessary for John to sacrifice himself. It shows his dedication to his family, in the film. God, Jeff's good, isn't he?
He's really, really good. I can totally see the appeal. He's very handsome in it. He's doing great dramatic work. He's doing great hammy overacting with the drunk scenes.
Yeah.
He's great just rushing around. It's kind of hack now, but he's got big Nick Cage energy.
Yeah, I was talking to someone... someone asked me that in another episode. I forget who it was, but somebody asked me about... why someone like Nick Cage has had the career he has and Jeffrey Combs hasn't had the career that Nick Cage has had.
I think it's just down to the movies.
Yeah.
Like Jeffrey Combs has never, and he might be looking for more dramatic roles. If he had a couple of one or two bigger profile, either lead roles in big indie hits or supporting roles in even larger movies, late 80s, early 90s, I really feel he would have jump to the next tier of crazy character actor, legacy.
Yeah, because Nick Cage did a lot of, and I guess it helped being a Coppola.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but Nick Cage also, he did a bunch of indie movies and then he did a bunch of very big mainstream action movies, which kind of allowed him to be a bit weird but ultimately action hero guy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, something like Felony was, I think, one of Jeffrey Combs' attempts to sort of break into that, leading man, action hero, romantic lead kind of thing. And he's obviously probably the best thing in that movie, but obviously the movie, I think it was, fairly cheap and, probably didn't do that well. But
that's the thing. It's just the indie scene that I guess Jeffrey would have been working predominantly in his time, late 80s, early 90s, was really groundswell, was really coming up into its own. And obviously VHS market really helped. And unfortunately, I feel like I want to say pigeonholed, but he didn't. He made a great career. He did TV, and he's got the Star Trek fan base behind him.
yeah.
He'll always have a fun career.
Yeah, I find it interesting because he often says that we think of Reanimator as his, breakout role, which it very much is. It put people in mind of this, incredible actor. But he says that, the phone didn't ring after Reanimator. There wasn't this groundswell of, casting agents coming to get him because we love Reanimator, but it wasn't like this huge success the way something like Evil Dead was.
No.
And
even if you watch that movie, you'll think, wow, this is really fun. This is a lot better than this had right to. You probably watched it on VHS and just thought, I thought this was going to be, a bad B-movie horror. And it is in some ways, but it's an elevated horror.
elevated schlock.
Elevated schlock. Now
Yeah.
that's a fucking genre.
Yeah.
That's a good genre.
My favourite genre. Yeah, I think it is interesting because obviously, yeah, you're right. He did get pigeonholed a lot after Reanimator. He got a lot of horror roles, a lot of mad scientist roles.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he was so fucking good at it.
Pigeonholing, it's something that a lot of actors go through, but if you can turn it into a career and you can keep consistently putting out good work and grow and see how much joy you're bringing to a genre audience, very fulfilling.
Something he said in I think it was a Reanimator Zoom reunion thing. Someone asked the group of people that were in it, what's like a project or genre or something that you always wanted to do but never got a chance? And he said sitcoms.
I would absolutely love a Jeffrey Combs circa 1991, 1992, 1 or 2 season sitcom. I would have loved it.
Yeah, he has done a few guest stars on sitcoms, like kind of like obviously there was She Spies. There's a couple of others that are coming up that are just sort of like, those sort of middle of the road comedies that are just like, I don't know, bunch of 20-somethings being weird in New York City or whatever it is.
He would be amazing, and not to discredit Phil Hartman, one of the best sitcom performances I'm talking about. He would be great as Bill McNeil in News Radio. A very pompous, grandiose radio presenter who's very full of himself, but sometimes makes a fool as well.
Yeah.
I think that kind of role, like an elder statesman in, like we're talking about, like a Friends, like a recurring arc and something like that. Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, and I mean that's
because he's funny.
He is very funny, and especially back in the 90s, he had a lot more of that manic energy. But he's still very funny now. When I watch a lot of people's one-on-one chats with him when they do those chats during cons and stuff, and he's very affable and very nice, and he's just very good. And well, the 4400 is probably the closest thing to comedy that he's done in TV, even though it's
a comedic role in a serious sci-fi
sort
series.
of, yeah. Like he has a lot more levity than other characters in that show. I haven't seen huge amounts of it, but from what I've seen, it's like that. But so yeah, that's Castle Freak.
That's Castle Freak. It was disappointing for me, but like I said, I went into it with my own expectations and baggage and built it up too much over the years. It was fine. I had a good time with it. For the most part, I reckon if your kind of deal is getting around with some mates, getting drunk or stoned or whatever you do and put on a cheap B movie, perfect for this.
I wouldn't put it on in that situation. Like, I'd be more likely to put on something like Reanimator. This movie, I think, has too much of that serious family drama, too much of the trauma of Giorgio's life. I think it has a lot of complexities that I think warrant a deeper look than a schlocky viewing. And I've only seen it a few times. I definitely didn't get that idea the first time I saw it. It took a couple more viewings for me to go, there's a deeper story than just, as Charles Band said, a castle and a freak. And I think that's down to Stuart Gordon wanting to make something very different to what he had made back in the 80s.
It's a weird financing situation that they approved it based on the poster and the title alone, but you can't argue they delivered on both fronts. As opposed to the bloody Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Virginia's not even in it.
There's no wolf in sight.
No. It's a full moon. Who's transforming? Richard Burton?
Who's afraid of Virginia's wolf?
Gosh. The only thing scary is how all 4 cast members were nominated for Oscars that year.
That's terrifying.
One of only 3 movies where 100% of the cast were all nominated. The others were Sleuth and Give 'Em Hell Harry.
What the fuck are those movies?
Sleuth, Laurence Olivier, and Michael Caine, both nominated, and Give 'Em Hell Harry was a filmed version of, I can't remember the actor's name, a filmed version of a stage play, and he got nominated for lead actor, which is why everyone was saying Lin-Manuel Miranda could get nominated for Hamilton when it got on Disney+. This has been Reanimates. I'm Tim Clark. I love the Oscars.
You do love the Oscars.
I do.
Timothy Clark, anything to plug?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's been a wonderful chat. Yes, first off, go follow Barbara Crampton on social media. She's got a weird handle. It's at Mr. Timothy Clark. M.R. Timothy Clark.
That is weird.
That's weird. Yeah. But, hey, any publicity...
She's quirky.
She's quirky. Hey, follow me on all the social medias. Twitter, Instagram. I don't really do Instagram. Letterboxd. I'm always putting up short little, funny little reviews there.
Yeah.
Come see our sketch show in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival that I'm putting on record will 100% go ahead in 2022.
Yep.
In a show called Chimp Cop. Chimp Cop presents Imposter Syndrome. We used to do cop detective parody shows. This is a new parody show set in space.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's actually what I'm not doing a joke. That's what it is.
That sounds great.
What better time to watch a play about four people who don't know if they can trust each other or have to limit physical contact between each other?
If you do like incredibly good comedy from incredibly good performers, I always highly recommend Tim in general, and also Chimp Cop. They've always put on some of my favourite shows during the festival. So if you're in Melbourne or coming to Melbourne for the festival, then definitely check those out. Also check out this guy. I'm pointing at myself. I don't know why I did that. It's on at Reanimates Pod on Twitter and Instagram, at Reanimates Podcast on Tumblr and YouTube. The episodes usually go up there. And, you can find it wherever you find podcasts. You don't need to be told that. You know where podcasts live. On the internet somewhere. Rate, review, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Send me rapid antigen tests. We're not doing well here. Go and see Tim's show. Watch Castle Freak. Hug a friend. Have a nice sandwich. That's always good advice. Good. Yeah. Drink water. That's one I got to stick to.
Drink water.
It's so hard.
Or booze.
Booze has water in it.